While others celebrate the wins,
Yes.
we celebrate the mud.
each episode has a special guest.
Tony-nominated actress, Broadway's Lily Cooper.
Tashir Zameda.
David A. Gregory.
Getting messy with muddy topics.
We are going to be talking about grief journey.
With hilarious moments
Now get over here.
And deep conversations.
I'm ashamed to even admit this, but this is what happened.
This is Into the Mud.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Into the Mud podcast. While others celebrate the wins.
We celebrate the mud. I'm Alex Kumin. I almost got it. I always laugh. I laugh every time. I can't help it. I'm Alex Kumin.
I'm Drew King.
And we are so excited, absolutely thrilled over the moon to have our guest today, Rebecca Fasman. Yes.
So thrilled to be here.
We have a fun little unique connection here. So I know your brother Ben.
Yeah.
And then he connected you and I like last couple months ago.
Right, when you were coming
when I
to
was
DC.
coming through DC, and then you and I started chatting, and it's like this is like a match made in heaven.
Yeah.
Because so I want to read your bio because it's such an amazing background.
Perfect.
It's
And
like
we have to get
really
it right, so we're reading
good.
it word for word.
Yeah, reading it word for word. Rebecca Fasman is the curator for the Kinsey Institute, Indiana University, Bloomington. She holds a master's in museum studies from New York University and a BA in visual and critical studies from the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. Great place. Rebecca has spent the last 20 years working in museums and art institutions, including but not limited to the Solomon R. Guggenheim Museum, the National Gallery of Art, Deutsche Bank, and the Museum of Contemporary Art, Chicago. Her curatorial practice views art, creativity, sex, and sexuality as lenses through which we can understand more about the nature of humanity, with the ultimate goal of wanting everyone to live the happiest, healthiest, most connected, and opportunity-filled lives they can.
Boom!
I rewrote that like a month ago.
That's an unbelievable bio.
It's impeccable.
Very like an unbelievable bio, but like such an incredible like what a journey, what a 20-year span this has been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And ending up I started at Kinsey almost 10 years ago. And in October, it'll be 10 years. And before then, I was at the National Gallery of Art in D.C., which is like the
museum.
Well,
The
and
largest archive?
Well, no, the Met, I think their collection is
Oh.
bigger, but the most risk-averse place, National Gallery, is like very, I mean, I have a soft spot in my heart for it, but going from there to Kinsey, which is like everything that we do is risky in some way, shape, or form because of the world that we live in and because of the country that we live in and because of the state that the Kinsey Institute is in, which is Indiana.
Indiana.
Red, with the exception of Obama.
True.
So red.
Well, can we start? Can you tell us a little bit about the Kinsey Institute, a little bit about the history and what y'all do at the Kinsey Institute?
Yeah. So we are almost 80 years old. So we have our mission is really about understanding and educating on sex, sexuality, what is sex, relationships, and well-being, I think is our new tagline.
Yeah.
But really, functionally, I think for myself and my colleagues, we want to make people's lives better. And in our particular lens, we see that as through sexuality and how we relate to one another and what intimacy is and how to feel safe and all of these things. So I work with a lot of scientists. On the collection side, I have really wonderful colleagues who have been there for a very long time. And we have, in terms of the collection, the largest public research collection related to sex on Earth. We kind of joke that the Vatican might have more, but nobody knows. And I don't actually know if that's
They might
true.
have more sex experience.
Yeah, that's right. But so we have in the art collection, which is primarily what I work with, we have about 110,000 items, and in the library and archives, about 600,000 items.
Wow.
So it's huge. And I will say that I'm the only curator, not by choice. I mean, it just is what it is in terms of how funding works out. And I love my job. I'm very happy with my job. But I love to collaborate. So that's why I do shows around the world with people. I do weird things too. Like
Tell us why you're here in New
yeah,
York.
right. So I'm doing this portfolio viewing of a Maplethorpe portfolio that we just acquired.
So excited about
I'm so
this.
excited to see you guys
I love
tomorrow.
Maplethorpe.
Yeah. And I'm doing it kind of in a weird-ish way in that, like, we bought this portfolio And I was like, oh, I'd like to do an exhibition that of these 11 test prints that were taken in 1979 of two men, Dominic and Elliot, who were in a dom-sub relationship. The photos were given to them as a gift, which Mapplethorpe didn't do very often. And Dominic and Elliot kept them when they were together. Dominic passed away. Elliot and his subsequent partner kept the portfolio. And when Elliot passed away, the partner then was like, I don't really know if I want to hold on to this. It feels weird to hold on to a gift that was given to two people who are no longer with us. And also, I would like some money. And so engaged with a photo dealer who I met 20 years after the portfolio was given to him, and our acquisition of it finalized in January. And one of the things I've been thinking about is like so much of our work at Kinsey, so much of the collection has to do with death and legacy, and especially considering the AIDS crisis and how many people's stories we hold and are honored to hold in our collection that literally don't exist anywhere else. They do not. This isn't to say that other collections don't collect material culture related to sex and related to people who died of AIDS and all of these things, but as a whole, our collection has so many pockets of lives of material culture that are completely unique to us. And so when I think about like how to make, was thinking like, oh, do I want to come to New York and bring this portfolio around to museums and like show them the things and get them to maybe give me a show? I was like, well, first of all, I would rather them come to me so that I'm not like lugging this portfolio on the subway, but not that I would do that. I would take an Uber. But also I was like, well, there are people alive now who were friends with Mapplethorpe, and like these are maybe things that they have never seen before. And if I can create a way for them to maybe be able to come to a space and sit down and using gloves, flip through, like almost touch something that their friend made.
Yeah.
Like maybe that would be really special. Because that's part of the like magic of these, of artwork, but collection items and all these is that, when you come to do research with us, you can touch them and it becomes really special. But if it's someone that you loved, a friend, it just feels really important to do that here now to create this like quiet, calm space. You'll see tomorrow, like the portfolio is in an archival binder in plastic sleeves sitting on a table. You look at it just with the group that you came with, like separate from everyone else, and you kind of have some time.
That's so
like,
intimate.
It's a unique way to experience art as well.
Yeah.
So fascinating.
I just like, sometimes I get, and I say this as someone who goes to museums and art spaces all the time, sometimes I get sick of seeing things on the wall. And also I'm a tourist. I love to sit. I love to relax. And so being able to sit and like take a deep breath and consider what you're looking at. I don't know. We look at things differently that way. Yeah. So
I have to ask one question.
Please.
Was Dominic the Dom?
No.
Oh,
I know.
I was like, I really hope that Dominic was the Dom.
Yeah, no. Dom was the sub and Elliot was the Dom.
I love that's his catchphase. Hi, I'm Dom the sub.
Yeah, I'm Dom the sub.
That is so fascinating. I love it.
What's true?
Yeah.
You'll just have to find out. I love this. Okay, so we've been geeking out about this, about having this chat all week long. We're so thrilled.
So much we want to
because
talk about.
we are both incredibly sex positive people, and we haven't had a full blown sex talk or sex education talk on the podcast yet. And that was something in our original brainstorming sessions. You said, I want to have a conversation about maybe even how do you talk about sex in public.
Yeah.
But we want to talk about sex education.
Yeah.
And who
The
better
state of it.
the state of it.
Oh, and
Because that's what's muddy, is the state of sex education in America right now. And who better to talk about it with than you, who works at the Kinsey Institute, which is so exciting.
Yes. I was going to ask you if you could just give us a snapshot of, because I from my work also in sex education, I have a little piece of what it has been and what it's switching to and all this stuff, but you probably have a more updated version of what is the state of sex education right now, particularly as the Department of Education is being dismantled, and that is an integral part of giving things back to states, states' rights, and Planned Parenthood being defunded, and all of the other things. And okay.
I just want to say that I do have Xanax in my backpack if we need it
I
throughout this
will
conversation.
take a quarter bar right now.
Literally, do you want a quarter? I mean,
before we leave, yes.
okay, great.
A little Xanny bar.
So, all right. So the history, the United States has never gotten sex ed right as a whole.
Agreed.
Ever. So a rough timeline is that it was in like the early 19-teens when, like, I think it was 1912, when there was an issue or a push to teach about sex in school. But even that was, it was very like rudimentary and very based on race and class and gender and all of these things. And it was more about like how to be a good wife or how to be a good husband.
Yeah.
Not how to be a good husband, how to be a good wife.
How to be a good wife.
And then World War I happened and like everyone got syphilis and gonorrhea. And so the army was like, oh shit, okay,
Yeah.
we got to figure this out. We got to stop. Because outside of the flu, the pandemic of that era, syphilis was the main thing that was like keeping soldiers from fighting. So it was like debilitating to the point where they were like, yeah, something needs to be done. So sex ed really came out of like almost like needing people to fight. And then...
Wow.
Then,
Classic
yeah,
America.
so
Yeah.
on brand. And then in the 30s, there was a push to teach people about marriage, right? That's how Dr. Kinsey found his way into sex ed or to, sex
was an
research.
Entomologist?
Correct. Well, he was technically a zoologist, but he studied
insects.
gall wasps, which if you
Love a
ever,
gall wasp.
right, didn't even know what
Love a
it
gall
was.
wasp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still don't.
Nope.
Anyways, but the American Museum of Natural History up the street, 70 blocks, they have his collection of gall wasps, and it's roughly 6.5 million gall wasps, many of them individually labeled.
Oh.
Yeah. Wild. He was a taxonomist,
gosh.
right? He wanted to and I say this because they're parts of the collection and parts of what we do that really reflect his desire to like know and name everything.
Yeah.
Right. And to not judge, right? He came from like he was a deeply non-judgmental person. And I think this is not that he was not the first sex researcher, but he was the first one to be like, oh, that information is based in a religious ideology and not in the facts of how people are actually living their lives. And like, what if we take away some of these ways, like regressive, oppressive ways that we're thinking about, like prescribing how to be a sexually happy person? We take those things away and we look at what people are actually doing in their lives. Anyways, I'll get to that in a sec. So Kinsey started to teach this course on marriage, on the biology of marriage, which was only open at IU, Indiana University, for seniors or married students. That's it.
Wow.
Those are the only people who could learn about sex.
Was that a university restriction because they
I think it was like a pretty common way to think about like who should have access to this information.
And this was in the
30, late,
30, okay.
yeah, early 30s, I believe.
Okay.
And so with Kinsey, he started looking at like that there's no or very little information about sex that existed, and started polling his students. And the president of Indiana University, Herman B. Wells, was like, cool, you can continue to poll your students, but you can't both teach them and get their sexual histories. You need to like pick a lane. And
I
he
love the
picked-
ethics there.
right?
Yes.
And Herman B. Wells was like, also, I'll give you money if you want to if you just want to do this as a research project
Wow.
instead of teach, go do it. And so that's what he did.
Okay.
So around that same time, we also have the, I think, what is it called? The American, oh my God, like the gynecological and obstetrician.
Oh, the
group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I know. I forget the
Yeah, the
abbreviation, but
acronym.
yeah.
So that also starts to happen in like the 20s, 30s. There starts to be a push for women to give birth in hospitals and birthing centers. All of this to say that like there is a lot of interest in sexuality, reproduction, and like a kind of overall fear that people are going to like find out too much or like
Wow.
find it out from the wrong people,
Yes.
right? And so also at this time, We are under the Comstock Act, which was the censorship act.
Rearing its head.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. And I will go on record to say that I'm pretty sure that they're gonna bring it back, which means that means that the postal service becomes like an arresting authority, potentially sending
The Comstock Act says that you cannot send lewd or like inappropriate information via
the mail.
Which is a huge blow to like sending mifepristone or morning after
100%.
pills, all of that stuff.
Yeah, totally. So, okay, so all of this stuff is happening at the same time, and sex ed kind of goes on the back burner for a little bit because of war. And then 50s and 60s, there's this like resurgence of interest in like, let's teach people, especially with the sexual revolution, like let's be a little bit more proactive. And it was actually like getting to a somewhat okay place. And then HIV happened, and the like
back and stigmatization of
exactly
sex and sexual orientation.
Exactly.
We have a whole beautiful episode with John Legutke about HIV and the history and
stigma surrounding HIV.
Surrounding
link in the bio.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's also this is where really like the the moral majority is like, we're just going to push abstinence only. And then also when we think about how textbooks were made, I don't know if this is still the case. So textbook companies will get a huge amount of money from the federal government if they write certain. So there was
I did not know that.
Roughly with I can't remember if it was Papa Bush or Baby Bush. One of them, or both, had a $250 million initiative to like push abstinence only in middle school and high school science textbooks. And so, or like McGraw-Hill or whoever would be like, oh, tight. We gotcha. Yeah.
It's a lot easier than having to draw diagrams of a uterus or,
Yes. And so that also gets us to where we are now, which is like coming back from this like abstinence only rhetoric that shows that it just makes people more unsafe.
Yep.
It just increases teen pregnancy rates. It just makes people more prone to get STIs because they don't know how to use a condom, or they feel stigmatized by it, or they're getting like I was reading one study that talked about how many abstinence only programs also lied about like masturbation causing like mental disorders and shit like that. That is just like,
Alex, you're fucked.
Yeah, I know. Same. I'm like calling my therapist. I figured it out.
Then I'm cooked.
That's why you're in therapy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wild.
So the story of it is so fraught with so many things, but it's like, it's money. It's like religious power. It's like wanting, it's like the medicalization of sex. It is like all of these things that just ultimately make people, again, more unsafe and less able to make good, smart decisions for themselves.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's so upsetting because all of that being stripped away yet again. How is it 2025 and we're still facing these challenges?
I know.
Yet again, it feels like we're regressing.
Yeah.
And we went through the HIV pandemic. We went through it and we have made massive strides when it comes to PrEP and making sure that people can have access to that medication if they don't have health insurance, if they don't have the money. And then also all the funding that the United States has provided abroad to help other countries, quite literally millions and millions of people who are affected by this pandemic that essentially started in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's going to be stripped away from those. So now we're fucking with people's healthcare and literally their livelihoods, and the lack of education and that being stripped away is only going to hurt so many more people. So
it's so wild too, because when I was teaching sex ed, it was under Obama as they were rolling out the National Sexuality Health Education Standards, which was a comprehensive, age appropriate K through 12. And I remember the first time I read through it and I was like, or like at least a step in the right direction.
Yes, totally.
Because that's the thing. Anytime I would tell people I taught sex ed to K through 12, people go, you're teaching kindergartners about sex?
Right.
I'm not teaching kindergartners about sex. I'm teaching kindergartners about your body belongs to you. How do you keep your body healthy, safe, and strong? Do you brush your teeth? Do you eat fruits and vegetables? Do you run around to keep your heart nice and strong? third, fourth grade, we're talking about sharing. How do you ask for something before you take it from someone, which is the precursor to the consent conversation that you have with 6th through 8th graders.
Yep.
That is what sex education is and should be.
Yeah.
And then also, when we get to high school, yes, we are going to talk about sex and we are going to talk about condoms because guess what? The kids are fucking.
Yes.
They are.
Yes.
They're
It's
fucking.
happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's happening.
It's happening.
We can't stop it.
So stop acting like it's not happening.
Yeah.
Stop acting like, well, clutch my pearls.
Right.
My 16-year-old gave a blowjob. It's like, yes, she gave it when she was in 6th grade.
Right.
Actually.
Right.
So can we teach her what gonorrhea is and what syphilis is and what HPV is? Can we
Yes.
teach them? Can we give the Gardasil vaccine, the HPV vaccine to kids before they are sexually active?
Yes. Yes.
I'm
Sorry,
taking,
did I get a little emotional
No.
there?
I'm taking the Gardasil vaccine now at
Yeah.
fucking 38.
Yeah.
And I should have taken it when I was 16.
Yeah.
I should have taken it when I was 5.
Yeah.
We have an episode about that too.
We'll link that episode in the bio
Linking
as
that
well.
in the bio.
Oh my.
Sorry. I'm going darker and darker by
No,
the
I love it.
moment.
I love it.
Anyways. Okay. So
We're getting heated.
we're getting
Wait,
heated and we're okay.
Can I
tell me.
say
Yeah,
a thing
please.
though,
You can
about
say anything you
about
want.
what you I mean, one of the things that I think is so comprehensive sex ed K through 12 shows that decrease in teen pregnancies, people wait to have sex, which is a goal that some people want. Which, I mean, it's great. Have sex when you want to have sex and don't have sex when you don't want to have sex. But that people are choosing.
Have a choice.
Yes. And fewer STIs, being more comfortable with birth control. But the other thing that when you were talking about the like K through 3rd grade is that when you talk about bodily autonomy, you also increase the chances that a child is going to say, oh, this person is abusing me.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
if you really want to protect kids, and this is another thing, we have a trauma research consortium at Kinsey that studies especially sexual violence, especially at, like, for people who experience this at young ages. Like, they're potentially like life-altering kind of interventions that can happen if someone feels empowered to say, like, you can't do that to my body, or I know this is wrong and I'm going to tell someone about it.
Yes.
That's actually when I say I did sex ed, that was the
That's the-
program. I worked at a rape crisis center.
Oh,
So
wow.
we would go in and we would do very specific, so body autonomy. But then the second day we would go in and we would do the adults we trust. We would write the adults we trust in a little tree,
Yeah.
and we say if anyone ever touches you in these areas, these are the people that you can go to.
Yeah.
And then we would always be the safe space people at
Wow.
the end of that as well. So if kids were being touched at home, they could come to us and talk. And I had
Yeah.
so many disclosures. I called DCFS so many times. And the line was always busy.
Yeah.
So I think also when we talk about like the frequency, and again, we've talked about this in my episode, 1 in 3 kids experiences sexual abuse. So it's like the importance of this. And it doesn't have to be this big, huge, serious, single sit-down conversation, the sex talk.
Right.
There's no sex talk.
There is none.
There's
Yeah.
no sex talk.
Yeah.
There is a series of conversations that starts at a young age to normalize that your body is yours. And then we, as you get older, then the conversation develops.
Yeah.
Like that's all it is.
Yeah.
And the fact that people think that, like, the rolling back of sex education because people think that kids are gonna be having sex earlier because they know about it.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah. Right.
Absolute insanity.
Right.
In
And
the
then-
age of the internet too, and
Yeah.
porn, and like, okay.
Yeah.
It's about education. You're right. It's allowing them to have the choice and make the choice.
Yeah.
If you can educate a kid not to get in the car with a stranger
Yeah.
who's offering you candy or to something along those lines, then you should be able to
Fire safety.
Fire safety,
Yes.
Flood
all of
safety,
This is all about the well-being of a human being.
Yes.
And
Yes.
in a developing body,
Yes.
that we all have a body. We
Yeah.
all will have sexual urges, unless you're asexual, and that's a whole other conversation. But
Right.
It's education that
Yes.
is necessary.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it speaks to the people who are making these policies, by and large, don't actually give a shit about, like, the well-being of people.
No.
They want to believe that because they think that something should be true, that it is actually true. And it's not, right? This is how, like, what Phyllis Schlafly,
Yeah.
spin on the ground
We
when
know
I hear her.
Phyllis. Do you know Phyllis Schlafly?
Yes.
Yes.
Um,
For our listeners who may not know Phyllis, in the time of what was it, the 50s, 60s?
Yeah.
60s.
60s.
She's very, very conservative,
Yeah.
buttoned up, like very like
Yeah.
Anti-feminist.
anti-feminist,
Yeah.
antithetical to like
Watch the
Gloria
show on
Steinem.
Netflix.
Miss America.
Miss America. I think
America, yeah.
Kate Blanchett
Kate
played
Yes.
the same version of
Yes.
Phyllis Schlafly.
Yes. But like there's never any, and this is the other like in terms of actually making people's lives better, like actually making sure, trying to create also with sexual violence being such an issue. One of the other people that is a researcher at Kinsey, Zoe Peterson, is amazing. She studies sexual violence. I remember when she came to do her job talk before she started at Kinsey, I was lucky enough to be able to sit in on her hour-long job talk and hear about her studies about sexual predation and like what she, because her whole kind of focus is like, can we create interventions to stop people from
perpetrating
sexual violence? And I left the job talk and I was like, that was the most illuminating and frustrating thing. Like I wanted to like cry, hug Zoe, and run very quickly into a wall because I was like, we're so fucked.
Wow.
We're so
I'm trying to wrap my head around what she.
So one of the things that she looked at was how specifically, this was a study that she did at St. Louis, I think at Wash U, I think, how men thought about themselves in relation to like, have you ever, should ask like, have you ever raped anyone? And they'd be like, no. But have you ever coerced someone into sex? And so many more people were like, yes. Have you ever heard no, but then like pushed back until someone gave in? Yes. Like all of these scenarios that were far more nuanced than like, are you a rapist? Is that how you consider yourself?
Yep.
She's like, so part of this is like a framing issue that like, we know that like we kind of understand as a society that like rape is very bad. And yet so many people are victims of it.
1 in 4.
1 in 4. That, I mean, and even that is that we know of. That we know of. And so then it becomes about like, how do you tell someone who has perhaps perpetrated that, who is maybe a rapist, that that's what they did? Because the way that we think about it and talk about it is still this kind of stranger danger, like someone who loves me wouldn't do that. Someone, there are all these.
The coercion isn't.
Or the coercion is just,
right.
yeah. Or like blue balls are really painful. So like, don't do that to him. Anyways,
Okay.
I got us off track.
No, there's no off track.
Great.
There's
Only
I
track.
like, yeah. There's
okay.
so much.
So right now, under this political climate, we have acknowledged that things are getting rolled back. Dealing of Planned Parenthood.
Oh, yeah.
There, we don't have a full actual comprehensive, nationwide understanding of what sexual education should be.
Correct.
Do you, as someone who works at the Kinsey Institute and as a curator, do you believe that there should be? I already know the answer to this, but then you can elaborate.
Yeah.
Do you think that there should be comprehensive, federal-wide laws on what sexual education should be across every single state and territory?
Okay.
Or do you think it's up to the states?
No, I think it's ideally should be a federally mandated thing. However, not under this administration, right?
There you
like
go.
that's the
ding ding, yeah.
because like this administration. I don't know if you saw the executive order from last night when this was about the Smithsonian and
I
about.
didn't hear this.
Oh my God, it's so fucking bad. He said
We know.
yeah.
He who
Said
shall
that.
not be
Yeah.
named.
Right. Said that his administration will no longer give money to exhibitions and programming that the Smithsonian puts on that uses race to divide Americans, which is insane because that's literally the history of the fucking country.
Oh my God, it
right.
makes my blood
Yeah.
boil.
But that also specifically calls out the Smithsonian Women's History Museum, which is not built yet, but there's a congressional charter for the Smithsonian American Women's History Museum, and then also the National Museum of the American Latino. But he didn't call out the American Latino Museum. He called out the Women's History Museum because they do have some initiatives that have started already, even though there's no building or whatever yet. And one of them includes an expansive definition of or a definition of womanhood to include trans people, to include trans women. And he is like, yeah, no more.
No more.
So no federal
No
funding
federal-
can now go. And
That's my understanding of the executive order. Yeah.
Wow.
And so, like, when I think about, I mean, we haven't, I am, well, I mean, I've been like deeply worried about my own job since I started at Kinsey, but, and one of the kind of, I don't know, one of the things that I'm thinking about now is just that there are so many other places that he's going after that, like, maybe we're a little bit, like, maybe selfishly, am I a little bit safe because, like, I'm not at one of the big major Smithsonian museums, but also I think, A, it's just a matter of time. B, the state of Indiana, we don't actually need the president to do anything to us because the state is doing enough.
states like,
Yeah, we got it. We got it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's really, but in terms of any sort of federal sex ed kind of mandate that this administration would do, I think it would be fucking terrifying.
It would be terrifying, and it would be completely
Catastrophic.
It would be catastrophic. I completely agree.
Yeah.
The awful thing too is that whatever he implements now, the ripple effect of it won't be seen for another.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's why, like,
Yeah.
it's it's not like, oh, and in 4 years, like, it's switch back. Like, it's such a the long term effects of all of this are so are enormous, are really just so enormous.
Yeah.
Well, I read on one of the, I think it was either Planned Parenthood or CDC, I can't remember, but that there's roughly only 39 states that mandate
18 medically accurate.
That medically accurate.
medically accurate.
Yeah.
But there are like 39 states that actually have, like, initiatives or mandates to teach some version of sexual education.
Yeah.
But I think and then 18 that are medically accurate.
Yeah.
But there's obviously major disparities in that, because it is what I read online also is that it's not left up to the state, it's left up to the school district. So if you have these differences between varying school districts, what school districts have money, what are white, what are poor, what are black, which ones are a little bit more liberal, which ones are more Bible belty, what if it's a Catholic school. So you, even within a state, even if it's like it's medically mandated or medically accurate, that's the thing is, like, in Massachusetts, I don't know, like, I feel like I actually had pretty killer sex education. But I also had like amazing but wonky sex education from my parents.
Right.
And but they were also really liberal and very different. But from there, so there's a broad range of what it is, what sexual education is. But even coming from blue liberal Massachusetts, being sexual orientation was not part of my sexual education. So, whether, being gay, bisexual, transgender, pansexual, none of those things were taught or discussed in my sexual education whatsoever. So what do you think the solution is to kind of tackle that and streamline and like codify what sexual education should be as a comprehensive?
I'm so glad you asked.
I'm so happy I
Just
did
so
too.
happens. So Kinsey has partnered with Crash Course, which is this YouTube channel that does these kind of focused deep dives into certain subjects.
Like masterclass?
Yes.
Okay.
I watched a couple before
I watched one.
And so there's one on like literally just penis.
Yeah.
One on vulva.
Yeah.
There's one on the first one is just like sort of general sex ed, sexual orientation, like all that.
Yeah.
So it's focused, a little like 15-minute.
Yeah. These and hosted by Shan Boudram, who's great. And we didn't. And so we were my colleague Jessica Hilly, who's the director of education at Kinsey, was the real like kind of guide throughout all of this, the content creation, like how are we talking about this, in the hopes that anyone with an internet connection can watch these and have access to like medically accurate, like culturally, we really wanted to make it as inclusive and correct as possible in terms of also like respecting like how we talk about our bodies, how we talk about sexual orientations, how we talk about like gender diversity, all of these things that are connected very much to like the political climate right now. We wanted to provide this kind of safe, like unpolitical space where people can just learn. And I was really nervous actually, so there are 15 episodes. And hopefully by the end, I mean, I am in this world and I learned new things.
Wow.
I watched
so-
it today. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Or even a good refresher from
Right.
like, oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Well, and one of the things that I think is so compelling about, especially the vulva episode, but the penis one too, is like, and I've heard this from friends and colleagues who are medical professionals who like see genitalia all the time, is that everyone asks, am I normal?
Wow.
Because if the only genitalia that we see, if the only access to like a body is through porn, and I'm pro porn, and also I have access to like historical photos of people's bodies over time. You know, like I see a lot more sort of regular bodies than maybe the normal person who's not a gynecologist. But yeah, I can see how people would be like, oh, my pussy doesn't look like an almond.
Yeah.
So like,
Yeah.
something must be wrong with me. It's like, no, that
yeah.
shit, like that, those.
Did you say that phrase?
Sorry. Sorry.
We have a joke that I can't say it.
I'm sorry. And also I should have,
No, you.
I should have
You can say it.
asked.
You can say
Okay.
it.
No.
Yeah.
That was
You're
just,
good.
You're good. I just want Drew to say it.
We'll get there.
That's
We'll get
fine.
there.
Baby steps.
So dumb.
But it is, wait, what do you say?
He doesn't.
Nothing.
God,
Vagina.
one of the things that I thought.
No, yeah, I say pussy. I say vagina. I don't know.
Yeah, look at
Just
you
said that.
go.
Oh, but that was a moment of growth.
Wow.
Thank you.
Good for you.
One of the things that I thought was wild about the vulva episode is that when Shen said the word pudendum, which is like, bleh, that's a word to me that I'm like,
I don't even know what
never-
that word is.
No, and
Pudendum?
Addendum, but it's from the Latin.
Yeah.
To be
be
ashamed.
sad. Yeah, to be
Be
ashamed.
ashamed.
Be sad.
To be sad, not to be
Be
ashamed.
sad and ashamed, but it's in reference to the vulva only, because that was what I loved about that episode. Was and this is something I encounter with stand-up all the time, is that I will watch a man go up and do dick joke after dick joke after dick joke, and I go up and I tell a joke about my vagina, and people go,
Yeah.
there's so much more shame attached to women talking about their bodies than there is for men. And I
100%.
love that episode kind of like opens with that.
Yes. Was like
Yeah.
our first introduction. I mean, I will say that like I don't remember hearing the word pudendum until I read, I don't know, probably some horrible book written by a man who's like trying to make pudendum into a sexy word.
Oh yeah. Oh, also it was so fascinating
Mound.
too, like
Yeah.
the number of like body parts in women named after men, like fallopian.
Oh yeah.
Grafenberg, G-spot, Grafenberg.
Oh, like
spot.
all of the
Like, it's
all
just,
of
like,
the glands.
Bartholin's,
skeins. Yeah.
God, men just stamping their name
Yeah.
all over women's
Yeah.
bodies.
Yeah, literally.
Don't
Please.
touch my pudendum.
It's true. Yeah, it's but that was one I was like, oh yeah, pudendum. I didn't know that that word meant to be ashamed. Oh my God.
It's so
Very
It's
illuminating.
the shame piece that has it's I mean that's the
But that's the
work.
but right.
yeah.
But getting back to like sex, like just people feeling from the beginning, maybe their first interactions with their genitalia as they like whatever experience puberty is like, oh, I'm abnormal. I'm weird. And people are going to think that I'm weird and I don't have anyone to talk to and I don't have any basis to like understand if I'm normal or if I'm not. And also I think that does something too to your self-esteem, because then you're like, oh, I should be so fucking lucky if anyone shows me interest, because like my, I don't know, my like
labia hang out of
yeah. Totally normal. Totally normal.
Mine don't. But
Definitely normal.
But dicks too.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
I mean, it's funny you talk about porn, because a big part of my sexual education was porn.
Yeah.
Because my parents were very liberal. Well, there's that. I'll tell you that. Well, yeah. My parents were very, very liberal. And so like when they were like, I guess we need to have the sex talk with Brian and Drew.
Yeah.
So my parents bought us a Penthouse magazine, and they opened it up to the center spread, and there was this whole like this whole like photo montage of this blonde girl in a Corvette, and it breaks down.
Yeah.
And then this like hot dude on a motorcycle comes and fix her car. And then it's just this dude with a huge penis, and then this like girl with like big like fake boobs. And like so like I was like, oh, that's sex. So my understanding of sex my whole life, because then I also leaned into
Only have it when your car breaks down.
yeah, exactly. I break down in so many cars, and
That's
so
why
many
you go
men
to
and
the auto
motorcycles
shop.
come save me. No, but like my understanding, it's just point being is that like it really is important what your sexual education is, because even something that I still kind of grapple with today is that like sex is a very pornographic experience for me.
Yeah.
It rarely is intimate and like filled with love. Sometimes if I'm with someone I love, I'm making love, but 9 times out of 10 is pornographic because that's what I understand.
Yeah.
And that is what I understood from a young age. And I have been watching way too much porn since I was, I was young.
Yeah.
And so that's my understanding. And so, and I'm sure that my parents probably tried to give me the frame of reference of like, this isn't accurate, but like, when you're a horny kid, you're not being like, oh, that's right. They're doing this because he's helping her with the car. And they love each other. That wasn't happening. No. I just was like, whoa, he's hot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, were they showing it? And this, how old were you when they did that? When they did?
I was in
like middle school.
I think I was in 4th or 5th grade. It was very young.
Good
yeah.
for them, though.
Yeah. That's awesome.
the time
Yeah.
to start.
Yeah.
Yes, that's the time to start it.
But I also wonder about like, okay, so if you say, porn isn't real, that's fine. And it's true. That's not. But also then like it feels sometimes wild to just be like, well, just figure it out.
Yeah.
Like there's no, how do we?
Where's the middle ground between figure it out and like,
Yeah. And like, I mean, I'm super visual. I like porn, but I also, I wonder about like how do we decouple, if we can decouple the idea of like performing during sex.
Yeah.
How do we decouple that from porn? I mean, because also like it is nice there is a performative aspect to sex, regardless of if it's related to porn or not. You're maybe watching someone or someone's watching you. Maybe you're blindfolded. I don't know. Maybe there's not a visual element. But like, I'm just saying that there is a performative aspect to it, but that porn dictates so much about how that performance happens.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, that's
it also, I think,
about your body.
and about your body.
Yeah.
That's right.
And I've been reading this book that I love, the multi-orgasmic couple, which is a really great book, but it talks about like Taoism and like that, like sex as healing and like like chakra balancing and like sort of more Eastern modalities of looking at sex, because it is is and can be a very healing thing and a very connective thing and an energetic thing within your body.
Totally.
And that it's just so viewed. It's just not viewed in that way.
Yeah.
Like it's
Very
from Puritan.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just sin.
Yeah.
Dirty. It's a sin. It's gross.
And it's like, okay. Yeah.
Then why did God give us sex drives and genitalia
And
why
nerve
does it
endings.
feel good?
Yes. Nerve endings.
Yes.
Why make it feel good?
Right. Well, and I
I
do
guess
think
to procreate, but
No, but
Yeah,
also it doesn't only feel good when a penis is in a vagina.
Yeah.
It feels
Exactly.
good when a sex organ is touched.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's not just
Yeah.
for procreation,
Yeah.
which is
but
like
puritanically speaking,
Puritanically
it's for
speaking,
procreation.
absolutely.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. I mean, okay.
why does anal feel so good?
Right.
Oh,
Exactly.
honey. We'll have a whole episode about
Muddy
that.
Buddies.
Yeah, right?
Listen to that episode where you talked about Muddy Buddies, and I was like, "That's amazing. I would like a shirt that says Muddy Buddies."
Muddy buddies, but in the back. Okay.
On my butt.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Muddy
yeah, yeah.
butts.
Your underwear line.
Ooh,
Yes.
Gross. That's gross. That's gross. Sorry. Or not gross. Sorry. Not to shame
It's
anyone.
not gross.
All good. Live
That's
your
not
life.
gross.
But yeah, it's just a play on words there. Carry on. Carry on,
Obsessed.
Rebecca.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Sex is healing. Okay. I'm gonna get a little personal right now.
I love this.
Okay. Great.
Welcome that.
Great. I'm in a little bit of a hoe phase right now. Yeah. It's so nice. It's so good. Okay. I lived in Bloomington for 6 years, and during that in Bloomington, Indiana. And during that time, I had a stalker for about 5 of those years, and I sent him to prison, and I like did all this stuff. And I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? But there was no like whatever for transformative or restorative justice. You need like municipal buy-in, and shockingly, Indiana was like, we don't know what those words mean.
Yeah.
So right, and so I it was a little pandemic gift that I was able to move back to DC. And this is to say that there's a lot about fear and like my personal journey as a person who is in this field, who has written about this, who like this in my whole life, it has taken me years to figure out how to feel safe in an intimate situation with another person, but especially a cis man. I have,
Same.
yeah.
Same.
Absolutely justified.
That feels, I'll say this, so good now, but was so fucking scary in this process. And even now, I'm like, how do I negotiate my safety if I like meet someone that I think I'm going to vibe with and I don't vibe with them, and then I have to be like, no, I don't.
How do I say no to someone when I don't know what their reaction's going to be?
Yeah, that's still a thing.
Yeah.
It's still, anyway, so the sex as healing also becomes like, I think a very real part of like overcome or figuring out how to navigate safety as a survivor. Like, but, and I wouldn't necessarily suggest that anyone does it like willing, like I mean, whatever. The way that I became like a monk for a little while, an ascetic, like I specifically cut off any intimacy from my life purposefully. I was like, okay, we're gonna build that fucking wall. We're gonna build the wall in that part of my life because I can't juggle all of it.
Yeah.
And so, but now that I moved back into DC, now that I'm able to like take a deep breath and like feel like I can give my nervous system a break, I'm like, oh,
You have to have a baseline level of safety. It's the hierarchy of human needs. You need to have a baseline level of safety in your own body for anything else to be built on top of it. So I totally like completely understand having to like build that wall, and then when you're ready, when your body is yours again, taking it down brick by brick and going, okay, and now we slowly reintroduce this.
And I also, so one of the things I think is so interesting also about the history of sex ed is that thinking about how much adults need it too.
Oh, so bad.
Like we should continue. I mean,
so much.
Like everyone should be obviously like watching Crash Course. But also like I wish that it was like I in my field felt so weird. I didn't have sex for like 4 years. It was a long, I mean, maybe it's not a long time. For some people it's long, for some people it's not. It is what it is. Like that's the choice that I made because my body was like, abso-fucking-lutely not.
Yeah.
I know that feeling of being so outwardly vocal about it, but then it not living it like yourself personally. And feeling like a little bit like at odds with like, well, why can't I talk about it so easily? I could talk about this all day. With strangers. But I'm still nervous to talk about it. But now I'm also turning the corner with that now.
Right.
And it's a
awesome.
wild thing. And it's like a beautiful thing because it is so healing, and it is like sex is like an energetic exchange and like a power, like your chakra system, your root chakra, and how it like comes like it's just transformative. It's
Totally.
really transformative.
Totally.
Yes.
And I wish that there were kind of ways for us as adults. I mean, we're doing it on this show. You're welcome, humanity. To really like say that it is normal to take breaks from sex. It is normal or not. Do whatever you want, but that like there are points and shit happens in our lives when we don't feel sexual, and that's fine. And there are times when we do, like right now. Also, I hope that I'm sure that my mom is listening to this. That's fine.
My mom's dead.
Nice.
And it's her fault that I'm addicted to porn. Thanks, Mom. Sorry, carry on.
Amazing. But I do think that right now also like post stalker, even though when I go back to Bloomington, sometimes I see him. And I also got a hysterectomy like 2 years ago. Highly recommend it. Highly recommend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Love.
Yeeting that fucking organ back to hell. I have the sex drive of like a 15-year-old right now. Like it's insane. It is insane.
Yeah. No,
And it feels so nice. And also, I am enjoying it right now. But again, wish that there were
more,
that it was more normalized to like talk about the ebbs and flows of it all.
Yeah.
As adults.
Because it does, because also, can I ask how old you are?
almost 45.
Almost 45. I think that's a thing we
Yeah.
grossly miss or not talk about enough is like this idea that like, yep, and then you hit 35 and then it's all down here. It's like, no, you're talking about like, especially after getting a hysterectomy.
Yeah.
Which I would love to talk about that for hours, but we
Yeah.
can't. But like,
Yeah.
that's a fascinating like physiological thing of like, that can be removed and then you could still have this wild sex drive.
Yeah.
And that like, also that women's sex drives tend to hit higher levels the later they like.
Yeah.
Oh, there's so much science behind this.
Yeah.
We do have to start to wrap it up, but I wanted to know, you had another question? I know I have so many questions.
Well, it
Or
was
if you
more,
had
more
any-
an observation I wanted to say about adults needing re-sex education or like
Yeah.
sex education again,
Yeah.
because I think that you, of course, know so much more. And Kinsey studies this extensively, and he himself did study it himself. There's the Kinsey scale, which basically essentially what ranges people's sexual orientation or sexual interpretations from 0 to 6.
Yes.
Being like 1 is like extremely, or like 0 is extremely straight and 6 is extremely gay.
Yes.
And then like 7 is asexual, I think is how the scale goes, something along those lines.
Is there okay?
Thing.
Yeah. No. Maybe. Yeah.
But I think that re-educating adults when it comes to sex is there shouldn't be shame in exploring your sexuality.
That's right.
And I'm very much a 6. I'm very gay. But there are times where I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
I could maybe be like a 3 today. I could be a 4. But I feel
Sit on the
comfortable.
days when I look
I said
amazing.
You said
pussy.
pussy today.
Yeah, that's a big day. I'm gonna go pound so much pussy tonight. But like,
Watch out, ladies of New York.
but that's the thing is like, there's I will say, I'm not that we're here to have a conversation about monogamy, non-monogamy, and all of that. But how do I say this? I have hooked up with a lot of straight men who
Yeah.
are married to women who
Yeah.
consider themselves to be very straight, and
Yep.
they're strictly only straight. But like, you're not straight if I'm diddling your D.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and they can't talk about it because there's deep shame about it. And I wish that those people, I'm not going to say men because I'm sure that there are women, there are trans people, there are people all across the spectrum who are experiencing the shame of exploring their sexuality.
Yes.
Sex should be fluid.
100%.
Should be fluid. Everybody should not feel shame about
right.
exploring that, because then what do you get out of it? Then you have these men who are sleeping around with their wives. I'm saying men. You have people who are sleeping around with their partners on the side when it's not agreed upon.
Yes.
And the shame is leading them to feed into that temptation.
Yes.
And it just festers and becomes this whole other thing. So yes, I just wanted to say, like, man, oh man, have I hooked up with many a man who has that ring on. And I'm like, you have a wife.
Yeah.
I know you have a wife.
Yeah.
And I hooked up. I sound like a terrible person.
No,
Anyway,
you don't. No, it's not.
It happens it just happens all the time. And I
Yes.
want people to know that happens all the time.
And that it's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad
like
thing.
that fluidity. Like
Fluidity is not
we
bad.
are. We should be, but we are sexually fluid. Like this should be something that we don't have shame about in any way, shape, or form, and gender-wise too, and all of the, like that. It is a totally normal thing.
Yeah.
And like, lovely, beautiful thing to be like, I would like to have this experience with someone of like the same gender or different or whatever it is. Like, have it, experience it. Don't feel shame about it. Also, tell your fucking partner.
And it also doesn't need to define you, though. It's like, you can still have your beautiful wife and have sex with her every single day.
Yeah.
But then, if you want to go like jerk off with your buddy and have fun, like, cool. Doesn't mean that you're like, you're gay now, or maybe it does. I don't know.
Right.
This is a
I know
conversation,
that's
a whole other conversation.
Kind of
But
problems with labels, I think, is that it becomes too much about how you identify, or like I fit into this box, and it's like, well, you don't.
But the education
Yeah.
that we are
really
all
so
deeply lacking, and it's just going down the drain right now.
I agree.
So I'm thrilled to hear about Crash Course, though, and I'm so happy
We're
that
gonna link
resources
all
out
of the
there.
crash course stuff in the
Yeah.
episode and share that. But is in our last few minutes here, is there anything else that you like that's been like policy wise or like something that you're working on or anything that we didn't cover that you want to that you wanted to make sure we talked about today? It's a big.
There's
broad
so much.
question. There's so much we could talk
so
for
much.
so many hours.
I will say, is this okay? Can I?
Yes.
I never.
Anything you want.
Okay, great. I did a show that came down about a year ago. It's a show of Bettina Rimes, who's a French photographer who was photographing like gender nonconforming people. And this particular series was 1989 and 1990 in London and Paris. And I put up these 12 images in, there's a show in Miami and a show in Bloomington of these works. And I was interviewed by someone in Indiana for the Indiana Daily Student. And this wonderful woman interviewed me. Her name is Julia, and she was so excited about the show. And she's like very sweet, very Midwestern, very like grew up religious and all the things. And this is a story about moving the needle a little bit, maybe. And she called me like a couple weeks after she had interviewed me. She was like, I have to tell you something. I was like, what? And she was like, I was talking to my sister about this show and how excited I was to like see the work and like excited for everything that you were saying and that this was in Indiana and like that this is like a subtle or not so subtle like pushback against like some of the legislation. And she was like, and I got off the phone with my sister, and then like 2 minutes later, my sister called me back and came out to me. Like,
I just got chills.
yeah, every time I say, and I don't know why I bring it up because like I think that the way that we get through to people, I think, is through like deep connection. And that is completely antithetical to the way that our political environment exists right now. And so one of the things with like the Mapplethorpe portfolio, with like everything that I'm trying to do right now, I'm like, I just want to connect with people because I think that makes people safer. I think that makes us safer.
It does.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel like I tell that story and I'm like, whatever small part that I can play in someone feeling safer is like amazing. And like, usually I cry about it when I tell the story, but like, yeah, that's what I want from my work is like, yeah.
I love that so much. And I know that's what your work is doing. It's already doing it. I mean, it's already just this conversation is like,
So
not to play
impactful.
favorites, but this
This is really special.
this might be my favorite episode we've done.
Wow.
What
a knockout.
Oh man. Okay. Well,
I'm sorry to end on that.
I'm not. That's
okay,
like-
good.
I'm
That was
obsessed with that.
Perfect button
This
to
is a
what that.
Perfect.
That was
Good.
beautiful.
We're gonna do a quick round of rapid fire.
Yeah.
questions.
Love it.
We do a.
To open up this iPad while holding this.
Oh yeah.
Tricky.
It's a whole thing.
Okay.
Okay, ready? So we just go rapid fire.
Great.
I do 5. Drew does 5.
Great.
Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Here we go. Spring or summer?
Spring.
Make a speech naked or tightrope walk across 2 skyscrapers?
Naked.
What's a more appropriate fruit to demonstrate condoms on
What's a more appropriate fruit?
instead of a banana?
Oh, instead of a banana. Oh, cucumber.
Pick one to name your child. Kylina, Morena, Skyla, Liletta.
Oh, God. They're all cursed. Morena.
Hoosiers or Pacers?
Oh, God. Hoosiers.
I don't even know what that reference is. I'm assuming
Sports.
it's sports. Okay, great. Here we go. Sex party or one night stand?
Sex party.
Work.
Yeah.
Why did the chicken cross the road?
To get to the other sex party. Obviously.
Favorite kind of donut?
A hole.
Honey. Okay. Wow, this is so loaded. Kill, fuck, marry. Halloween, July 4th, Thanksgiving.
Oh, I marry Halloween. I kill July 4th. And what's the other one?
Thanksgiving.
Fuck Thanksgiving.
Oh, yeah. I fucked that turkey.
Yeah, honey. Okay, what is 4 times 4?
16.
Bravo.
Oh, my God.
Well done.
I love this.
That was so solid.
That was amazing.
Oh, my gosh.
I mean,
Rebecca, you knocked that out of the park.
Hole.
Amazing.
yeah,
Hole.
hole. To get to the other sex party?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Are we hanging out while you're here?
Yes.
Let's
I love it.
go.
I'm so obsessed.
Oh,
This is
this
dynamite.
was amazing. Thank
Ooh,
you.
I'm
Thank you for
hot.
listening. This was I know. Do we all just
Yeah, right?
we all need a cigarette? Thank you all for listening. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
coming
This was
on.
amazing.
And
Oh my God.
we'll share all your resources and all the work that you do in the bio and
Great.
everything. And
Great.
Do you have a personal Instagram or social media that you want to share that people follow along?
R Fasman, RFASMAN on Instagram. I barely check Facebook anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Great.
Yeah, that's it. R. Fasman. I'm private, but follow me if you want to.
And the Kinsey Institute also has a social media. Yes, I believe.
Never heard of it?
Yeah.
Never heard of it.
Kinsey Institute. We have a YouTube channel. We have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Threads, I think. We have all sorts of things.
And
yeah.
Crash Course on YouTube.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
out.
Check it
Yeah.
out. Absolutely. It's rolling out right
Spread
now.
it around
Yeah,
to
yeah.
anybody you think needs this as a resource.
Yes.
Free resource on YouTube.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love it.
Amazing.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. We adore you.
Amazing.
All right, everyone. We love you. Please like,
Guys.
follow, subscribe, comment, all the above.
Yeah.
All right. Have a good day and enjoy your sex.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please. Bye.